So in the end, this is a self-persuasion. It's not an other convincing. It's not about being others focused. It's about being self-focused. I don't mean to be selfish. I mean to grant yourself, this is a whole different world is what I'm speaking about. I'm not speaking about as the world deems as selfish, and the world will tell you who to be jealous about, how you should compare yourself, how you should judge yourself, how you should think about yourself. But if you just ignore all that and do a societal cleanse inside your mind, you will find yourself having the ability to freely choose what you desire inside yourself. And this isn't about convincing another person. It's about a self-persuasion. It's about persuading yourself that you already are the thing you're desiring to be. For that neutralizes your desire. It's a change in self is what you're seeking. Growing up, we may have had to accept certain distorted images of ourselves. We may have felt we were a slave to certain assumptions about ourselves. Maybe we had to act and pretend against how we felt. So we created a disconnection within ourselves. But Neville says that imagination does not question my right to want it. So regardless of any image that I may have taken or any self-concept in the past that I may have adopted, imagination doesn't interrogate me. It doesn't stop me from wanting it. It doesn't stop me from fulfilling it inside myself, regardless. So, as Neville said, I don't care what the past says. Regardless, assume it anyways. You want it, but you condition it. You want it, but you reason your way out of it. You want it, but you feel unworthy. If you were just to let go of all of these ideas and realize that imagination doesn't question my right to want it, and it doesn't question me to fulfill it, then regardless of what states maybe I adopted in the past, they weren't really me to begin with, because I can move and switch between states inside myself. So I'm never really bound to anything. So don't be addicted to questioning and doubting yourself. You want it, then fulfill it. Allow yourself the ability to test this instead of questioning yourself. Regardless of how you feel, just test this. Allow yourself to test that whatever I desire, let me believe I have it, and I will. So it's a self-persuasion. It's a self-relief. It's a self-satisfaction. There's no need for anything outside of you to convince you. You use the internal evidence to convince you. So there's no need to convince another or to change them. If I honestly believe that there's nothing or no one to change but self, then I have to leave it all alone and find self and I change it. But self is not found on the outside of me. And when you see that self is only found within, and you truly remove all these ideas, these societal labels that were given to you, and you allow yourself simply to rest in the idea that inside yourself there is no judgment, there's no fear, there's no one to fight, there's nothing to desire, it's just self, then you can finally have a sustainable peace inside yourself. You can truly let go. And as William Blake would say, he would fall back into states. He would allow himself to be embraced. Neville say he would yield into it. So it's all about gently falling backwards or yielding or gently accepting, granting yourself the permission to have. It's all done in a lovely way. It's not something that is forced upon yourself to take. You don't force yourself to take upon a state. You grant it to yourself, regardless of whatever reason that you give yourself to not have it. The question becomes are you convinced that you are? And if you have to ask yourself this question honestly, am I convinced? If I'm not convinced, can I make myself convinced? Can I feel that I'm convinced? Do I hold this ability to change myself? And when you realize that you do, you'll realize that you're no slave inside your imagination. You're no slave inside. You're no prisoner to the external facts. We might live in this world that might feel like a sea of facts, and you might feel like you might be swallowed up by a fish when you feel overwhelmingly that the external is not conforming. You allow yourself to gently yield back to it, ignoring the senses. So here's a quote that Neville said that really kind of encapsulates everything is what I'm saying. He said, "So here in this game of life, it's a game. Paul calls it a race. He said, I have finished the race, I have fought the good fight, and I've kept the faith. But you can call it a race or you can call it a game. Both are competitive, but the competition is with self, not with another. There is no other. You're not trying to get beyond the other fellow. Grant him the right to use the same law to achieve his goal. His goal may be something similar to mine, but I have a goal. Then I simply apply this law toward my goal, giving him complete freedom to get his goal, even though it's similar and may even be duplicate. Well, let him have it. So you can tell the law to anyone, and it's not going to rob you. You can tell it to everyone in the world, and anyone who asks for your secret, tell the law that the end is where I begin. My beginning is my end. That's where I start. I go right to the end, the thing desired, and I feel myself right into it. I feel myself into the wish fulfilled. I drop it, and that is casting my bread upon water when I feel satisfied. So there is no other to compete against. This happens all the time. But what happens if two people are imagining the same thing? Just grant him that thing. Similar to render unto Caesar what Caesar's, give Caesar what he wants. Give yourself what you want. Don't allow these ideas of not having the abundance within yourself, that you're competing with another person. It's simply self against self. So you enter in yourself and you ask yourself, what states am I holding? Can I change? I may come up with a million reasons why I can't change, but can I change? I will only know this if I test it. So I change myself regardless of the past. I feel myself beyond reason, and I find myself changing inside. So it's nothing that really is that difficult. It's simply a letting go of these, I call it a societal cleanse, of all these ideas that were given to us about ourselves and our ability within ourselves. We truly have the ability to desire inside ourselves, and we have the ability to fulfill. Don't forget that part. You may question yourself and worry that, well, what if it doesn't produce the right fruit? Or what if it happens too fast? Or what if it takes a long time? Neville says if you're asking yourself all these questions, you haven't yet yielded into it. You haven't yet felt yourself right into it, as he would say. You haven't yet felt the wish fulfilled if you're still asking yourself these questions. There really aren't any more questions to ask. It's a true faith. It's a true trust. You may ask yourself, well, how can I trust my imagination? The same way you trust anything within it. And if you don't trust this thought, you'll find another one to trust, and you'll believe in that one. You might not be able to trust yourself in believing that you're as brilliant as you would like to be. Well, then you'll go on believing that you're not brilliant. There's always a surplus of thoughts to believe in. Whether they're good or bad it's up to you to define. But never count yourself out, regardless of where you're at physically. It's truly something you must learn to let go of entirely, because that's where you're going to find the true freedom. The more you let go of the external, the more real your imagination feels, the more you start to drop the importance of it, and you see it as a reflection or a shadow, or you feel one with your environment. You will no longer feel that it's coming at you. You'll start to feel a deep peace inside, and lean into that peace, for that was given by yourself, to yourself. And that's what this race is. It's against self. Even if you have fallen out of a state for a long time, or you were once in a good state and you fell out of it, you can't lose a state. Don't reason again and think that, well, I disqualified because I fell out of it, or I didn't sustain it long enough. You can always go right back into it, so never count yourself out inside yourself. So before you compare yourself to another, before you find yourself thinking thoughts of the inadequate, which is comparison, and you find yourself reasoning your way out of the things you want or conditioning them, realize who you're really fighting against inside yourself. Realize who you're really denying. And when you see that truth, that it's not against another, that you don't have to be other-focused. And when I say self-focused, I mean the inner self, the one in imagination, the only self there truly is. When you see that that's the one you free, that's the one you exalt. And when you see that you can do it, you will. I believe in you. I believe you will do it. And when the facts are against you and you find yourself imagining yourself to be something other than what the senses are saying, and when the imagination becomes the victor in this, you will now serve the right God. You will no longer go to some other person to grant you something. You will realize they can't. You can't go to another shadow. You will find yourself going towards the light which is within. And I want to end this with a quote that you should dwell upon. Truly, think about it. The quote is this: all feelings and thoughts are yours. Just dwell upon that. It's a simple quote, but there's a lot of truth that you can extract from it. So learn to leave the hellish lands inside yourself and come and dwell in the land inside yourself where there's forgiveness, where there's fulfillment, where there's joy, and rest in that area, and let that become your place of habitation inside yourself. And I'm glad this helped you.